So I know capitalizing on the second screen is the title of what we're supposed to be talking about, but and I promise we'll get to that. But I wanted to start off since Netflix is kind of an interesting case, and in many respects, you guys are, because of your digital distribution, you're kind of where a lot of media companies are probably going to end up in a few years. I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about mobile devices as a primary consumption device as well. So to start off, I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about how you approach mobility. Like, are mobile devices just another platform for you to port to, like a Blu-ray player or a game console, or how do you approach that?
So, we're on hundreds of devices. People stream across, whether they're streaming on what we call the 10-foot experience, which is the TV experience, or they're going on their phone or going on their tablet and so forth. We want to make a great experience on all, but not all devices are created equally. And they're not created equally in two different ways. Way number one is how consumers watch content on the different devices. So if you think about, some of this isn't surprising, some of it is. Something that isn't surprising is, even though something like a phone has really broad reach, a lot of people stream on a month-over-month, whether it's iOS or Android, on Netflix on a phone, they don't watch that much in one sitting. So you're not going to marathon watch all of House of Cards on your phone. Well, there's a few exceptions, but not many people are going to do that. They're going to watch little snack-sized bites. A tablet, a little more. A tablet tends to be more like a PC of how much they'll watch at once. The difference with a PC and a tablet is a tablet has become more like a book. Get into bed, and this is a really common use case, get into bed, take your tablet, watch some Netflix, go to sleep. That's, very typical. Whereas a TV, you're much more likely to watch a lot more content, but you won't do it as frequently. It won't be start, stop, start, stop. In terms of approaching what we do around those different devices, obviously there are different form factors. So if you were the touch screen, you're going to deal with it a lot differently than if you're a left, right, up, down, navigating on your TV set. And then a touch screen with bigger real estate, a tablet versus a phone, we're also going to deal differently in what we're going to test on a better UI for those different kinds of devices.
So operationally, though, do you have a mobile team? Do you have a tablet team? How much of that is shared? How much of it is just, the one app and expanding or compressing to fit the real estate?
So, it's funny, when we first started, figuring out your teams and your company, we had like a mind on for all the product leaders at Netflix. We had someone focused on, you're taking guesses a few years ago. So tablet and phone we put as one device class, and someone was focusing on innovating on that. Then we had website, then we had 10-foot, like I said, the TV UI, and we divided those up. Then we started noticing, well, a tablet is used in some ways a lot more like a PC than a phone, but they're both touchscreen. So, and then it gets to the point where you don't want to make all your devices so inconsistent that the user doesn't even realize they're on Netflix and they're not used to some conventions that they get from one device to the other. So now we've kind of broadened it out. We don't have we have some, engineers who are used to, pretty much writing code for different kinds of platforms. And we have designers who are used to doing things for like a touch screen, but from a product leadership perspective, we tend to jump from platform to platform and try to get a more holistic view of the Netflix user experience.
Okay, and last question on the kind of first screen. What is the balance of consumption on mobile devices versus TVs, and I guess PCs somewhere in the middle, and do you see that changing?
Yeah, so as I was alluding to before, you're not going to watch long stuff on a phone, but here's something surprising. So we made the big assumption that, well, a phone, such a small screen, and it's going to be in bite-sized chunks, you'll be much more likely to watch, a sitcom like New Girl or How I Met Your Mother. Whereas if you're going to watch a feature film, you're going to watch Avengers or something like that on Netflix, you're going to watch it on your TV. Not necessarily true, actually. What tends to be the case more likely is people now watch much more segmented. So since you can move seamlessly from one device to another, you're just as likely to watch overall, if you look at the whole population, to watch a feature film on your phone. You just won't watch the whole thing. You'll continue or finish watching it on the tablet or on the TV or on the PC.
Okay. So second screen, traditionally, people think of it, I think, a lot of supplementary content, one way or another. We were talking earlier about what made sense and what didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So let's start with what didn't make sense, because it's always just fun to talk trash. We had the Odorama example. We were talking about John Waters and polyester and the scratch and sniff cards that went along with it. It was a supplementary experience that might not necessarily translate to the world. Like, what have you seen, like what are bad ideas that you've tried that maybe don't address as wide a market as you thought?
So we never have a bad idea. So it's always good. No, I'm totally kidding. I'm glad you guys laughed. We are always testing things, and some of them, if you're not testing things that fail, you're not testing aggressively enough. So we do test things that don't work. We haven't tried Odorama yet, when you scratch your phone and it starts smelling like something like that. We haven't built that app. I don't plan on it in the near future. There are, when it comes to second screen and kind of like those, content enhancing moments. So there's an example of something I found really amusing. I don't know if you guys heard about. There was a Dutch film that came out recently, big screen movie, released theatrically, and they had a big second screen experience around this thing. The movie was called App, A-P-P, and it was a horror film. And so basically the way this movie worked is you would download an app to watch app. You didn't have to do that, but it added to the experience supposedly. And it was about, the app on a girl's, teenager's phone is possessed and it's doing crazy things. And what you could see on your phone is it would vibrate, and during the movie you would see like what they're texting between the two friends, and you'd have enhanced moments, or you'd see a news article about what's going on. So that is the modern version of John Waters' Odorama, and I'd be really impressed if more than half of you knew what that Odorama movie is, but look it up on Wikipedia if you don't. It's the gimmicky, one-off, hopefully, I don't know if they did app, I haven't met the filmmaker, hopefully they did it with a little tongue-in-cheek.
Do you guys have that? Because I would totally watch that.
Good to hear, because like I was saying to Cormac before, there is no such thing as a bad movie or TV show. There's just a mismatch between a person and that show. Even if the only great audience for a movie is the director and the director's mother, there's always an audience for every piece of content. So, there is an audience for app, and I'm glad to see I'm meeting one right now, and I haven't seen the movie, so I don't want to diss it in any way. As far as Netflix trying, having fun, I would say, with trying something where there's some, supplementary experience, I think Game of Thrones from HBO is an interesting tale. Which is, I've been talking to people over there, and they did an award-winning second screen app around Game of Thrones. We could follow the different kingdoms and the different maps, and it was super elaborate, and by the way, super expensive to build. And I don't think it should shock anyone that almost no one used that. It was a tiny percent of real super fans who watched it, and I might have another one, because after Game of Thrones second screen. So, and here's the kicker that I've heard from people over there, which is not only did it get used by the tiny percent of users, but the people who did use it were such super fans, they were disappointed with it. They invested so much in this thing because they were such super fans that that really good thing had to go even deeper to make them happy. So I don't want, at Netflix, like any company, we have a certain number of chips to keep on innovating on our product, and I want to keep on pushing those chips in the right thing to make a better and better user experience. And so making an expanded second screen experience, it's not like we're going to not test that ever. And it's not like, now that we have Netflix originals, it's not like there won't be an original come along where I'll be tempted. But when I'm tempted, and myself and my team, we're working on something like that, I don't imagine we're just going to do something like that and go for that tiny percentage or go for the PR of something that no one's going to use, because that doesn't improve the user experience. Hopefully, if we try something like that, we have that lightning bolt of an idea that it's more than just a tiny percent using it.
Okay, so another thing you did, in terms of supplementary content on the Xbox, was party mode. And I actually know some folks, because apparently I'm the statistical outlier, I know some folks who actually really like that. And they were generally people who loved their Xbox already. They had a community of people who were used to communicating that way, and they wanted to watch movies together. This is where, if you had an Xbox, you could do joint viewing on Netflix and communicate with your friends who are watching at the same time as you. And you discontinued that. Now, how much of that is because you're strictly an asynchronous viewing channel, and how much of that is just that people don't want to do that? Like, if I'm HBO or someone else like that, is there still an opportunity for me to do that through some second screen interface, or not?
So, to just be super clear, Xbox discontinued the functionality of party mode. Microsoft is a valued partner of ours. We get a ton of streaming on the Xbox. We think it's a good experience. But when we first launched with Xbox, Microsoft was very enthusiastic about this party mode, which is taking basically what's asynchronous content, watch whenever you want, wherever you want. That's our Netflix credo. And making it like, I can watch the same time as my friend, and we can watch, Episode 7, Season 3 of Breaking Bad, exactly the same time. We'll be texting, we'll be talking, it'll be amazing. I wasn't particularly bullish on that, but we are willing to test things, and since Microsoft was so bullish on it, and they're a valued partner, we wanted, we might as well see if they can work because it already had the functionality on the Xbox. So we tried it, and as suspected, a tiny percent used it. When they pulled it away, there was the occasional long-distance romance of the boyfriend living in Chicago and the girlfriend living in LA, and they had watched it together for so long, and now that functionality was gone. No matter the challenge of introducing functionality that a tiny percent will use is you might have to take it away eventually, and that can be painful for those small percent of users. So you want to be careful, any company, of giving something to users that only a tiny percent will use, that it won't be economic in your interest to support. So we're always, thinking about that from a product perspective in Netflix.
Okay. So what does work for you guys?
So when I think of second screen, I do think it's powerful, and it's very basic, but I think it's, it's core, which is second screen has the potential. This is an open bet. Who knows if this will come out? I'll come back in a few years and we'll see if this is right or wrong. But second screen, having another device lit up, a handheld device while you're watching your TV, can work really well as first step as a remote to browse content while you're watching something else, to find it, to play it, to throw it up on the screen. That is, a powerful use case. And then the second evolution of that is as your identification. So to expand on that, right now, we've done, we're doing like toe in the water work. You can take Netflix right now. You can be playing, Netflix on a PS3, on your Wi-Fi at home, and also have a Wi-Fi enabled phone or tablet, iOS or Android. And then it can talk to your PS3. You can have something playing up on the screen while you're browsing for something else. You can control it, pause, rewind, play something else with your PS3. And then with the launch of Chromecast, which has gotten off to a really auspicious start, hopefully it keeps on doing well, Google's Chromecast, which we're partners on, you can do something similar. But the catch there, and an important step, which might drive second screen, is that with Chromecast, there is no UI on the TV. You need to have your phone and tablet to control the TV experience. And it's a really cheap way to take a dumb TV and make it a smart TV by just plugging in this little thing that looks like a flash drive. So if that will make a consumer reason for why it might take off, because technology doesn't just take off because we all in Silicon Valley want it to take off because we're able to do that technology. It will take off because there will be consumer adoption. Chromecast might be the door open for that. We'll see.
Okay. And we have a few minutes left, and I've got a couple more questions, but if anyone in the audience has some questions, we have 2 microphones right there set up, so if you have a question, feel free to walk down to the microphone. So you guys have, you recently announced some social plans for Netflix. And social and asynchronous viewing, it's kind of an odd pairing. So can you talk about how that works?
Yeah, so social we've had it abroad outside the US for a couple of years, and because of some laws about sharing that were changed by Congress, now we've had it in the US for the last 6 months. That's very much a wide open bet, how social will go. And when it comes to, let me just quickly tie it into second screen. When it comes to social and second screen, I think it's a powerful and growing application of second screen with live events, which isn't the business that we're in at Netflix. We're storytellers, we're about TV shows and movies. But if you're watching a sports event or news or some competition TV show, then that's great. Socially, going out with your friends. But the odds that you'll be watching exactly that same episode, I already told you, we talked about the story party mode, less likely. So I do think social will be helpful and will give you more and more expandabilities, I suspect, if it tests well, to be able to share or to be able to comment on some things you're watching on Netflix with your friends to look at asynchronously, but real-time kind of thing, leave that to live kind of shows and so forth.
Okay.
Might have something.
And we have a question?
Hi, yes, Todd. So just a quick comment and a question. Big fan of second screen. I just discovered this on my TiVo player with YouTube. And pulling up YouTube videos was extremely painful. And now I can, with my iPhone, pair it. And man, it's changing the entire experience. So big fan of that. The second question is, can you talk a little bit about why it's so hard to get additional content from the studios? Like, you know, it's the whole thing about, well,
Sure, I'll answer that quickly. So I'm not the content guy, I'm the product guy. So I work closely with my content partners down in LA. But we're proud that we've expanded the catalog for Netflix vastly over the last year or two. Now we have originals, which I'm sure you're all aware of, that's successful and great TV shows. And so we think, you know, it's hard, you know, in terms of like just finding the right content, deciding what content to license and what not to. But you have to pay for anything, so you know, don't expect to have like every piece of content on any service. Netflix, we think we have a very competitive offering.
Another question for media distribution companies, because the media is distributed so widely through so many different channels. A cable company or even a local broadcast station might have something in Friends and reruns, and they may want to create second screen content around that or build a community around that. For you, you have your Netflix originals, and you have obviously creative control over that. But do you have to go back and renegotiate contracts to get supplemental content, or to rework the content that you already have on content that you don't own?
The core of the experience is watching the story that the directors and writers intended, and that's like 99% of what it is. The supplemental content, whether that supplemental is extra features and so forth, we're going to test that around our own originals. DVD, no one had any idea. We were deeply in the DVD business and have been for years. No one ever knew how many people were really watching the special features. We'll experiment around our originals. If it does well for originals, then we'll go back to our partners that we license a ton of content from, and I could see possibly doing some extra content, supplemental content around that. But once again, the real part is what a story they're trying to tell and watching it on your own terms.
And with that, we have 10 seconds left, so I apologize we can't get to your question, but feel free to catch either of us, and you'll probably want him, but I'll be there as well after this. And thank you, Todd, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Cormac.